Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Adakai TCG here, and I'm coming back at you with another deck profile video. So just yesterday, I was able to compete in my second year anniversary event. I participated in the one being hosted by the One Piece official store in Mitsuwa in Edgewater, New Jersey. The folks there have been great. They've been hosting great competitions, and so it's been really cool to kind of head out there time to time to play. And so a huge thank you to the staff for always hosting and being so hospitable and caring for the community. I think they do a huge part in growing and fostering the One Piece community, and so yeah, shout out to them. But yeah, I was able to take first place and get this lovely Nami leader card, Nami winner card, sorry. And yeah, it's really beautiful card. Was super privileged and excited to have won this. I love the art on it, and the coloring goes crazy. And so really excited about that. Was so stoked. Unfortunately, I did not pull any serial Luffy's from my event packs, but that's okay. You know, it happens. A guy can dream, but I wanted to go over the deck that I used, which, as you can see, was the Blackbeard Marshall D. Teach, and we'll talk about the deck profile and then some of the matchups that I had. And so, real quickly, let's go over the Blackbeard package first. So it's a pretty standard list, but just in case, I'll go over it again. So I ran 4 copies of Lafitte. Again, you want to run this at 4. He's your 1-drop, 1K searcher. So he's kind of like the Bonnie searcher in green, where you can activate main, rest 1 Dawn, rest Lafitte, and then he's able to search 5 cards deep for any Blackbeard pirate card. And he can search himself, which is really cool. And so, really good card. And also, he becomes like a pseudo blocker once your opponent has to kind of deal with it so that you don't keep drawing cards. And so very cool, very good. We're going to talk about the 2Ks next. We run a very light package of 2Ks. So we're running 4 copies of Stronger, who's a 1-cost 0K power. He has an activate main. You may trash 1 card from your hand. Trash his character. If your leader has a Blackbeard Pirates type, you draw 1 card, and then you can give up to one of your opponent's characters a -2 cost. So it's a cost reducer that's also a 2K. You do have to go down 1 card in hand size, but you do get to draw another card in case there's a dead card in hand that you don't really need. But sometimes you need to use it just to get the cost reduction. And so, yeah, we also have 3 copies of Shiryu. So he's a 3-cost, 4K power, obviously 2K counter. He has an effect where Dawn ×1, when attacking, you may trash 2 cards from your hand and then draw 2 cards. So rarely do I play him, but in the times you do, he's able to cycle your hand, which is always great. Next we have 4 copies of Doc Q. He's your 2-cost 0K power, one of your great cards in the deck because he has 1K counter, so he's not dead in hand. But you're hardly ever countering out with this deck. But he has an activate main. You may rest his character. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, you can KO one of your opponent's characters' cost of 1 or less. And so he does remove. He's one of your main removals in the deck. But also he has an on-KO ability, which draws you 1 card. And so he's removing something from your opponent's board. But more importantly, he's drawing you a card after he dies. And so very good with your with the leader, because the leader does require you to nag a card in hand to use his ability. And so having that replacement is very, very key, because your hand size management is going to be key in a lot of the matchups. And so we're running 4 copies of Jesus Burgess. It's a 4-cost 5K power, 1K counter. Great thing about him is he can't be removed by KO effects, so he's quite sticky. And for every 4 cards you have in your trash, he gets 1,000 power as long as you're playing a Blackbeard leader. And so he can become quite a powerhouse swinger. In the event yesterday, I've gotten him up to an 11K swing. And so, very, very good. You can kind of play him out safely in the early game. He'll stay and stick around because he can't be KO'd by effects. And by the late game, he's just like monster of a powerhouse swing, helping you close out the game. And so, very important card across many matchups. You're going to want to play this and get him out before your Blackbeard turn. And so, depending on the board state, I usually always have him out by my 8 Dawn or 9 Dawn turn. And yeah, so very, very good card. We are running 4 copies of Van Augur. He's a 5 cost, 6k power, 1k counter. He has an activate main. You can rest the character, and if your leader has a Blackbeard Pirates type, you can give up to one of your opponent's characters -3 cost for the turn. So very good combo is Van Augur into Q, because now you're able to pop a 4 cost, which helps in the Dofi matchup and across a lot of matchups actually. But he also has the on-KO ability of drawing a card when he gets KO'd, and so being able to replace himself, again, very, very good. You are always managing and running really tight on hand size in this deck, and so anytime you're able to force your opponent to have to swing into your body and then replace it with drawing a card, very, very strong effect. And so we're running 2 copies of Vasco Shot, and so he's just a 2 cost, 2k power, 1k counter blocker, and this card really comes in handy. The way I like to kind of play this card out is having these turns where maybe I'm playing out like a Jesus Burgess and a Vasco Shot on 6 or something like that. It really helps because oftentimes you don't want to block with him till later. I think the later you get to play him, as long as you play him before Blackbeard, it gets stronger. But even you can play him afterwards too. But some of the strongest setup you can have actually is having a Vasco Shot developed on the board, a Jesus Burgess on the board, and then playing your Blackbeard, right? Because now, even when you swing with your Blackbeard, you still have a blocker in case they try to don up and kill your big boys, like your big bodies. You can simply chump block with this Vasco Shot. And so a lot of games where I was able to set up really good board states just by having him out before my 10 Dawn turn. But again, even afterwards, it's quite good. We are running, of course, 4 copies of the 10 drop Blackbeard himself. He's a 10 cost, 12k power with the blocker type, and he has a fantastic activate main. Basically, activate main once per turn. If your leader is Blackbeard Pirates, this character basically, when played, negates the effect of one of your opponent's leaders during his turn, and negates the ability of one character card on their field, and that card can't also attack. And so he'll negate all their abilities, meaning if there's a blocker type, they're no longer a blocker. If they have any effects, they no longer have those effects. Only caveat is if an effect isn't on play, like say like it was you didn't leader ability and they saboed, and they gave everyone on immunity to KO. This would not remove that for the other characters, but it would remove it for the Sabo if you targeted it, if that makes sense. But anyway, that's the Blackbeard character package. The only character that we're running that's not a Blackbeard type character is Laboon, who's your 4 cost, 5k power, 1k counter, and he has an activate main. You may rest his character and give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during the turn. And so again, just another reducer that doesn't require an on-play, because obviously your Blackbeard leader negates your own on-plays. And so what this allows us to do is it allows us to hit a 5 cost with .Q. And then if you can get Laboon and Van Augur on the board, obviously your .Q can hit an 8 cost. And with some of the other removal events, it allows to hit higher. And so quite good running it at a 4 of. We'll go into the events. So we'll go back to the Blackbeard events. We're running 4 copies of My Era Begins. It's a 1 cost event. It's an activate main. So look up the top 3 cards of your deck. Reveal 1 Blackbeard Pirates card other than My Era Begins. Add it to your hand and you trash the rest. And so because you're trashing the rest, you get to build up your trash, which helps with the Burgess. And so very good to kind of build that up, a little bit of synergy, pick up what you need, and there you go. We're running 3 copies of Full of Lead. I'm not running set 4 because I don't think you needed a 4. 3 seems to be enough. I see enough per game. But it's the 1 cost stage, and it kind of works similarly to like the Reiju stage, where you can activate main, rest the stage, trash 1 card from your hand, look at the top of the top 3 cards of your deck, add a Blackbeard Pirates card, and then put the rest in the bottom of your deck. And so, very good card for helping you find and cycle your hand to find the pieces you'll need for the matchups. Lastly, we have 3 copies of Black Hole. And so it's a 4-cost event. Main, if your leader has the Blackbeard type Pirates effect, negate the effect of up to one of your opponent's characters during this turn. Then if the character has a cost of 4 or less, KO it. And so, really good at removing a 4-cost straight off the bat. But another really cool application of this is it removes the effects of a character card. And so, say like they're hiding behind a blocker, but you don't want to commit a swing. You can just play Black Hole, remove that blocker effect, and now all your swings are going to be going through. And so there's quite a few ways to use this ability. And the more you play, the more you'll see. Like another cool way you can utilize this is reducing a jack by at least 3 cost. When you play Black Hole, you'll negate his additional cost effect because it negates that on the text. And so you'll actually be able to remove it with Black Hole. And so very cool. We are also running 4 copies of Finger Pistol. Yeah, it's a 4-cost event. This is from the EB01. Activate main. You may trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. And then KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. And so, very, very good card, allowing you to just hit a 5 cost. And again, paired with Laboon, it's a 9 cost. Paired with Van Augur, it's an 8 cost. But, yeah, and it has a great trigger. The trigger is just activate this card's main effect. You need to see this trigger, and you need to see this in life if you want to stand a chance against Dofi. You pray for it. But yeah, very good card. And it also fills up your trash, which synergizes with Burgess. And so, really like that. And then the only tech cards that I'm running is 3 copies of Tempest Kick. And so, I've tried a bunch of different iterations. Like, I've tried the Jax, I've tried Ice Age, I've tried the Barto Mancheri. But what I found to be the most consistent and what aligns with my playstyle the most is just simply just using Tempest Kick. In the early game, if I have an extra non, I almost always just use it to thin out my deck, just draw 1 more card deeper, which seems to really help in my style of play. But then on the off chances that I have 10 or 9 things in trash, 9 cards in trash, having that reduced 3 is really, really nice, especially in the later game where, say you're dealing with a jack, you can Tempest Kick, Black Hole, and get rid of a jack, and so it's really, really strong. Its trigger is also great. Actually, we should talk about the card. I didn't even talk about it. So it's activate main, draw 1 card, then if you have 10 or more cards in your trash, give up to one of your opponents, -3 cost during the turn. And so, very good just for comboing with Doc Q, and hitting with like Shigon and Black Hole. But it also has a great trigger too. So KO up one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 3 or less. In this deck, you kind of struggle with boards that go too wide. And so, oftentimes it could come down to like a 1-cost searcher being the difference between living and dying, right? Because your opponent can just don it up and swing and just have the right number of swings to kill you. But having an additional effect to kind of KO those bodies have saved me in plenty of games as well. And so, this is the deck list that I'm currently running. I really like it. I probably will be sticking with this unless I have a great revelation otherwise. It plays really consistently, which I really enjoy about it, and this deck really does reward you for understanding each matchup and what your opponent wants to do. And so the more you practice with this deck, I think the more payoff you will get. But I will say this is a very unforgiving deck, right? Where you will lose matchups just by misplaying one turn or one card. And so it has very little room for error, but it has all the tools it needs to really thrive and be a nuisance to your opponent. And so, very fun deck. And yeah, let's go talk about the matchups now. All right, so let's talk about the matchups. And so, game one, I was up against Purple Luffy. It was actually against one of my buddies, RJ. You may have seen him on the stream before. I do test with him occasionally, but he's been kind of out of the meta for a little bit, kind of stepping back in after. Yeah, he has some other priorities that he was attending to, and so with this matchup, one of the things that I do want to do is I want to try to go first to get them off their curve, and I generally risk not leader abilitying until the opponent's 7 or 8 dawn turn, just so they can't Luffy Taro. I'm not sure how right that is, but I allow them to use their Law Searchers, their Zoro Juro Searcher if they want to. The ones I'm really concerned about is the Luffy Taro or like the on-play rushes. And so starting 7 or 8 dawn is when I'm generally trying to leader ability. But luckily, it was a pretty straightforward game. I was able to develop like my Doc Qs, my Van Augur, using Shigans to get rid of his board. He does play the 7-cost Kid, which was a little different from what I was used to seeing in most Purple Luffy lists. But just like any other 7-cost, I was able to remove it with like Van Augur, Liberation, or Shigan combo. And I think he played it twice. I was able to remove it twice. And he does play the Rush for Nosuke too. And so I was able to still maintain 2 to 3 life though by the time I got to my Blackbeard turn, and just chaining it back to back at that point is usually pretty GG. And so I took round 1 against Purple Luffy, leading to game number 2, which was against Smoker. And so I did lose the dice roll, and so my opponent forced me to go first. I was able to actually develop a Doc Q to Van Augur, and then a Doc Q and Van Augur. And so basically by my I was able to just remove pretty much anything that he was putting down, while forcing him to decide whether he wants to swing into my board and give me more cards or leave them on the board, right? And so all in all, I think like I pretty much high rolled this matchup because seeing them back to back, and then on my 9 dawn turn being able to drop Burgess was just it was a lot of questions that you ask your opponent, right? How do they answer? How do they respond? And so by the time I got to my Beard turns, I was sitting at a pretty healthy 3 to 4 life with a Burgess on the board, and so and a good amount of cards in hand because the Doc Q and Van Augurs are drawing you a card on KO, and so I was able to win that one after establishing the Blackbeards. Game number 3, luckily dodged Dofi, and I was up against the BY Luffy, another one of my friends, Javi, great player, awesome guy. Unfortunately, this matchup is pretty Blackbeard favored. And on top of that, I actually won the dice roll, so I was able to go second. He did establish some early little brothers, and so I used like Liberations and Shigans to KO them, to not let him have any sort of development. I was able to Doc Q, Van Augur, and Burgess, and so he just didn't see enough 5-cost Sabos as well. He didn't see it on curve, and I didn't leader ability that time too. It would have been nice if he had it, but basically after that it was pretty cut and dry. I was able to just whittle him down and close out the game with the Blackbeards. And so Last but not least, we have game number 4, which was against another purple Luffy. I did win the dice roll. I went first. And this game around 2, I was able to keep removing his early summons. But he was able to ramp and drop the 9-cost Luffy on curve. And so by the time I hit... He had the 9-cost Luffy out for 1 full turn, because I went to 8 Dawn... No, I went to 9 Dawn after he had summoned his 9-cost Luffy already. And so I used that turn to mitigate part of his board. And then he plays out more bodies. I think he played out 2 more bodies. And now it's my 10 Dawn turn, and I have the ability to drop the Blackbeard. But he had developed, I believe, I want to say it was like a Zoro Juro and maybe it was like an Uso Hachi on the board. And so instead of developing the 10-cost beard at that point, because I think I was down to 2 life, maybe 3, I did opt to do the Doc Hugh Van Augur and Vasco shot. So I was able to KO a body and develop a blocker. And he was able to swing in and answer my Doc Q and Van Augur. But by this point, I think I also had a Burgess on the board. And so being able to enter my Blackbeard chains after developing a Vasco shot was huge for me, because I was able to prevent his 9-cost Luffy from attacking. And now I can kind of freely attack with my Blackbeards, sitting behind just the Vasco shot blocker. And so by that time, I was able to chain Blackbeard into Blackbeard at 2 in my hands. Luckily, I used Full of Lead and got the 3rd Blackbeard, which really sealed the deal. And so once 3 Blackbeards hit the table, you just can't do anything. And so was all in all was really, really fun. Got really lucky dodging the Dofi matches, I think. And there was actually my buddy, 2 buddies, Zaki and Joe, who were on Bello Betty. And they were undefeated for a while. And so luckily dodged that matchup too, because I know that would have been really, really tough for me. And so had a great matchup spread, was able to play it out and secure the wins. And so if you guys have any questions about the deck, please let me know. If you have any questions about specific matchups, if you guys like and want more Blackbeard content too, I do plan on getting some more coaching on this deck and just sharing whatever information that I learn throughout my coaching sessions. And so really would love to hear feedback from you guys. And again, if you guys like this sort of content, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. It really does help the channel. And thank you for tuning in. Attica TCG out.